Hey, good morning, everybody. Yeah, it's about 7 almost, about 6:57 a.m. on this Wednesday. Yes, I do have to work, but I don't have to be at work for another couple of hours. Actually, about four and a half hours actually going on that, but whatever. But I thought I'd come on here and talk about something that I heard Josh Scorcher, aka Firebrand, talk about. You see, he recently, well, he didn't recently, but a couple of years ago, he reviewed Magical Mystery Cure. And even though he, amongst many, said it's a good episode, the one thing he said that was hypocritical about it was its message. Now, in case you haven't seen it, the plot basically goes like this. Twilight wakes up one day, all giddy and excited, thinking nothing can go wrong, and then immediately after she's singing a song about that, which I think is called Morning in Ponyville, she ends up getting wet. And she thinks at first it's Rainbow Dash who can control the weather, or at least can help control the weather or something like that. But instead she finds out it's Rarity, and Rarity ends up having, and what she notices is Rarity has Rainbow Dash's cutie mark. So basically what happens is throughout the first act, if you will, is she notices everybody or all her friends have different cutie marks or have each other's cutie marks. Like I said, Rarity has Rainbow Dashes has Fluttershy's, Fluttershy's has Pinkies, Applejack has Rarities, and Pinkies has Applejacks. And basically, long story short, what happened is Twilight realizes what occurred. She basically explains to Spike and the viewer that the night before she ended up getting something from Princess Celestia. It was a book that contained Star Swirl's unfinished spell. Basically, it was a spell that he didn't finish because he didn't know how to, or he couldn't come up with the final kind of words to complete the incantation. So anyway, what happens is basically Twilight reads the spell, but she reads it right near the elements of harmony, and basically because the elements of harmony are connected to it, the elements end up switching everybody's destinies that the cutie marks gave them originally. They end up basically switching it around. And not only does it switch around their destinies, but it switches around the memories of having said destinies. And so what happens is Twilight has to figure out how to fix this. She does basically, she does realize exactly how she has to fix it, and thus she ends up doing so. And as an end result, she ends up finishing the spell. Basically, she ends up putting her own words down to help finish the spell, thus making Star Swirl's unfinished spell her own. And what this does is causes her to be zapped by the elements into basically another plane of existence, where she meets up with Celestia. Celestia sings about and talks about how proud she is of how far Twilight came, and thus Twilight, as an end result of that, ends up finding out what her true destiny is. And that is not to be, and obviously that's not to learn about friendship and make friends in Ponyville, or to learn about magic and all that. You know, it's not that destiny. It's her destiny her destiny turns out to be the fact that she's destined to become a princess. So this is basically that's sort of the long short of it right there. Is the fact that she finds out that her destiny is not what her cutie mark is telling her, which is the destiny of magic, which is it's not the element of friend. Basically, Twilight finds out that her destiny is not to learn about friendship and make friends and all that, and have the element of magic with her. That thus being her destiny is the element of magic. Like Rarities is the element of generosity. That's her destiny, to be generous to those in need and all that. And same with the other characters. But basically, Twilight finds out that her destiny is ultimately to be an alicorn princess, and thus in the long run we find out that it's her destiny to be the princess of friendship. Although it's not indicated right off the bat. It's not indicated right off the bat. Now, like I said, it's not indicated right off the bat. Now, one thing that Josh brought up when he reviewed this was the message was kind of hypocritical. Now, the reason he said it was hypocritical is because the elements of harmony basically the 5 of the main 6, basically the main 6, found out through the cutie marks what their destinies were meant to be. And that through a spell, an unfinished spell by Star Swirl, those destinies got mixed up, so Twilight basically had to set a course to fix it. And by doing so, she realigned the destinies of her friends as they're meant to be. What Josh and probably some others have issue with is the fact that the message is kind of hypocritical, because Twilight ends up finding out that her ultimate destiny in the end isn't just to be the element of it's not just to be the bearer of the element of harmony, no. And it's not just to learn about friendship. Well, not actually, what I'm saying is Twilight finds out that her destiny is not just to be the bearer of the element of magic and to learn and discover and create friendship. She ends up finding out that her true destiny is to become, her true calling and her true destiny is to be that of an alicorn princess. And thus we find out later on to be the princess of friendship. Now, the reason I think Josh and others take issue with this and say it's hypocritical is because you just had Twilight go on a mission to fix the mistake that she made by reading Star Swirl's unfinished spell and adding her own take to it, her own addition to it, thus making it her own. And you end up telling her, you being Celestia, that her true calling is to be an alicorn princess. I think that's where the hypocrisy in the eyes of some comes into play. It's because why would you have, if you're Celestia, why would you have Twilight, your prized student and pupil, why would you have her go through all this to basically realign the destinies of her friends as they were meant to be, and yet you come out and tell her that her destiny, that her true destiny is to be an alicorn princess, and thus, like I say, we find out later on, the princess of friendship. Why would you do that? Why would you have her go and do that and then basically say, your friend's destinies remain the same, but your destiny is a lot different? Why would you, if you're Celestia, why would you basically tell her that her destiny has changed, that it's different than what it was originally meant to be? And I think that's where the hypocrisy comes in, because it's like you're basically two-facing the message. You're two-facing it by saying, yes, stay true to who you are and everything, or basically you're two-facing the message of being true to who you are, but on the other side you're saying, but by the way, you can also do this, or you're also meant to do this. So I can understand basically where Josh is coming from, and I can understand where others are coming from. Now, there are some fans that are okay with this. Some fans felt it was good. Voice of Reason basically came out and said, hey, Twilight becoming a princess, it might have been forced at times, but hey, it's worth it. The storytelling was worth it in the end. Even someone at the MLP forums did a review on it, and he said that despite some of the flaws, it was still good. It was a progression of the character. Same thing that Voice of Reason said, that basically it was basically Twilight coming full circle when this moment came. But this is where, even though the message is hypocritical, this is where I think the writers know that they could have waited on this. Here's why. You see, the writers, in case you haven't noticed, depending on who they are, have been writing Twilight, have been writing what I'm saying is they have been writing Twilight. They've been writing Twilight as almost like, in a sense that she's accepted her new role as Princess of Friendship. You know, she's accepted it, even going beyond, going as far as being a teacher and a mentor to someone like Starlight Glimmer and such. That despite all that, despite, like, say, becoming a mentor to someone like Starlight Glimmer and helping her to reform and thus become not just her student and her pupil, but now be her equal in a sense, to the point that now she has, I believe, a throne of her own amongst the cutie map table, and thus making the main 6 into a main 7. Not only has Twilight accepted being that and accepted the royal duties that she now has as a princess. I mean, heck, she even said so at the end of Princess Twilight Sparkle Part 2. You could tell that the writers pretty much realized, like I said, that they kind of rushed the whole Princess Twilight thing, all because of the fact that Hasbro, the people that are licensing the show to DHX Media, they pretty much realized, hey, this was rushed. We could have waited on this. So here's what we're going to do to compensate for that. And what they're doing is they're writing at times in certain episodes, including the recent movie, the way they're writing Twilight is the fact that she's still unsure of her role as the Princess of Friendship. That even though she's gone and done all this, she's accepted her role. She's gone and become a mentor to someone like Starlight. Even though she's gone through all this stuff, that in a way, when you watch her in certain episodes, like let's say recently Once Upon a Zeppelin, and like I said in the movie, that basically Twilight still is unsure of her role of being a princess. Like it's almost like you can sense, even though the writers don't straight out have her say it, the writers are pretty much hinting from a continuity standpoint and a storytelling standpoint that Twilight kind of still longs to just be a regular unicorn pony that enjoys everyday life with her friends. That she'd rather be rid of the princess duties she's been given and go back to being herself again. And I think, I think that's why, even though fans look at what happened in Magical Mystery Cure as controversial, and they look at what happened, like I said, even though fans look at Magical Mystery Cure as controversial and hypocritical in its message, basically, like I said, I think the writers are making up for this in their own metaphoric way, by having Twilight, or by writing Twilight in the ways that they're having her be written. By having her, like let's say, no second prances in A Royal Problem. If she truly trusted her student Starlight to make her own decisions and to go on her first ever friendship mission, then she wouldn't have to make appearances like she did. She wouldn't have to follow her or spy on her. She would trust her to make those decisions on her own, to accomplish the friendship mission on her own. And to me, when Twilight was written like this, it was basically the writer's way of saying she's still learning she still has a lot to learn in her role as a princess and as the Princess of Friendship, because she's still learning how to trust certain ponies, certain creatures, but also the fact that, like I said, you take a look at Once Upon a Zeppelin, and even with the movie, it's like, in a sense, Twilight still is reluctant to be in the role that she's in, and she kind of longs to go back to the way she was, even though she's accepted her role. It's like, yeah, you can accept your role, the new role you've been given. Like, let's say at my job. At my job, if they say, okay, we're going to make you a CSM, a customer service manager, and I'm not expecting it. It's like all of a sudden out of nowhere, I'm thinking, why? I'm this now. Why am I this? I mean, even Twilight questioned it when Celestia mentioned and confirmed that she was a princess. Twilight was like kind of like doubtful about it. Even into season 4, she was still doubtful about it because of the fact that she basically knows that this is not what she really wants to be or really what she's meant to be. She's meant to be herself. So again, like I said, you can kind of see that contrast. You can kind of see the writers even going back as early as season 4. Even going back as early as season 4, you can see the writers basically saying, okay, we know we screwed up a little bit. We know we had to make her a princess at the end of season 3 because it was mandatory. It was mandated by Hasbro because they had this Princess Twilight Sparkle toys coming out. So we had to do this to coincide with it, So basically, to me, I think the writers, even as early as the season 4 premiere, and even somewhat in the season 3 finale in certain parts, but mostly as early as the season 4 premiere, and even up till now, like I said recently with Once Upon a Zeppelin and the movie, I think the writers are realizing that they screwed up, that in their minds, and this is just my opinion, that they screwed up and that they rushed this, and that the Princess Twilight thing could have waited, and could have waited to at least maybe, let's say, a series finale. If whenever the series was to end, which I still believe will be after 10 seasons, they probably realized that they could have waited till then, because I think Lauren Faust even said Twilight was destined to become a princess, but her plan was to make it happen at the end of the series. So, to me, I think the writers, despite how you feel about each and every one of them, they're making up for the whole situation by writing Twilight the way they've been doing in certain stories and ways to make up for that. They're writing her in a way to where, like I said, she still is like, even though she doesn't come out and say it directly in story to someone like Celestia or Luna or Cadence, she pretty much, you could tell from a metaphoric, if not meta standpoint, longs to go back to her normal life, like be without the responsibilities, be without the royal duties and responsibilities, just go back to being herself again. Being nerdy, if you will, just being her geeky, library-loving, book-reading, friendship-making self again, and not have to worry about all the royalness, all the royal duties and princess duties that come with her new role and everything. She just wants to go back to her normal life. And that's why I think, it's just my theory, and this is just theories. That's why I have a theory and that's why my theory here is this is why she's written sometimes the way she is. Like she was in the movie, like she was in Once Upon a Zeppelin, and other episodes past, and even future. So I think the writers write her like that because they're trying to make up for what happened. And honestly, you may say, honestly, you may say, well, wouldn't Hasbro have a say in that? Yeah, Hasbro has a say, but I think Hasbro is probably cool with it because I think they realized, yeah, maybe we did rush you into doing this, but we have to, because this is with any businesses. Any companies that license out their property for other medias to adapt, they will, when the time is right, have that media adapt their property into something, adapt a property or adapt one of the characters, well, basically what I'm saying is that when the time is right, the people that license out the franchise, license out the characters to be adapted into other kinds of media, when the time is right, that's when they will come out and say, okay, you got to do this to said character or characters so it ties in with the toys or whatever we're bringing out at the same time. And that's exactly what happened with Twilight Sparkle's character. Fans may not be happy about it even to this day, but the point is they did it because they had to tie it in with the Princess Twilight Sparkle toys. And by doing so, I think the writers realize they made a mistake. So what they're doing is making up for it by writing Twilight into situations to where even though she doesn't come out and say it, you could basically metaphorically see it, that she kind of longs to go back to her normal life. That she'd rather be rid of being a princess. She'd rather not be a princess. She'd rather not, have these royal duties or anything. She'd rather go back to the way things were before. So I think, and again, that's just my theory as to why I think, it's just my theory as to why I think the writers write Twilight the way they do nowadays. It's to make up for what happened. It's to make up for what happened in Magical Mystery Cure. I think that's why they're doing it. So, let me know what you guys think, though. Comment down below. Let me know what you guys think about my theory, and I'll talk to y'all later.